Hey everybody! Welcome to this fun free motion quilting demonstration. I'm super excited. It looks like there's about 30 of you watching right off the bat. Thank you for being here on time. This is going to be a lot of fun. I can see your comments down in the chat as we go through this Facebook Live video. So if you have any questions or comments or you want to throw some shade, I will see those comments and respond to them, which will be kind of fun. I'm excited for the interactive portion of how Facebook allows us to do this. So, yeah, if you have anything you want to say to me, now is a great time to say it because you could send me an email, but I can't avoid these comments. So, hi, Christine. It's good to see you here. Why don't you guys shoot me a comment and let me know where you are watching from? It looked like in the RSVP for this event, there were close to 90 people who said they were coming. So that should be awesome. So I'm sure that as we jump into things more, more people will jump on and hang out with us for a little bit. So that should be kind of cool. Also, this video will be available for replay. So if you have to step out, no big deal. If you come in late, no big deal. It's going to be totally fine. But I am excited to hang out with you guys while we have some time together. So, oh wow, hello from Washington, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Vermont, Minnesota, Denver, Texas. That is awesome. Nevada, very cool. Pennsylvania, California, Colorado, Florida. Do you have any tips for working a big quilt on a sit-down long arm? Just starting out, London, UK. Hello, Helen. I have a couple tips that I could share with you with a sit-down quilting machine. One is basting your quilt before you start. So I have had lots of experiences where the backing of my fabric got gathered because it was bunched up under the machine. So find a good quilt basting spray. I don't know in the UK what that would be. In the United States, I use one called Sullivan's Quilt Basting Spray. But doing a good job basting your quilt before you take it to the quilting machine will help you manipulate things a lot more. I have also found a lot of success with my sit-down quilting machine if I can put it up next to another table that's the same height. Like you can kind of see my setup here with my sit-down machine, but I try to surround myself with more table space. So if that's like an existing table or if you buy some extensions for your quilting machine's table, that will also help. The more you can have your quilt on top of your table instead of draped over the edges, the less drag you're going to have. So I hope those tips help. Let me know how they do. Some people have even said that they will clamp bungee cords to their ceiling with clamps on them, and then they will just hang like, well, I gotta show you with like another quilt. They'll hang parts of their quilt from the ceiling and it just drapes down underneath their needle. And that is kind of like anti-gravity. So you could try that as well. I don't know. Working with a big quilt on a sit-down machine is tricky. So be prepared to stretch your shoulders and make sure your posture is good because you can get really sore really quickly. Or at least I get really sore because I start to get all like hunched over like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So take care of your body. Make sure that you have good upright posture. That will help too. Hello from Canada and Oregon. Orem, Utah. Hey, we're just around the corner from each other. Pamela says, I didn't register yet, but I'm so happy I put it on my calendar. Great. That is awesome. Peter says, I saw a show of yours and I was amazed with your skills. You have the most interesting visual abilities. Hi from British Columbia. Thank you, Peter. That is so nice of you. What show did you see me on? Because I have been on a lot of shows. Just kidding. I've been on a few, but I'd be curious to know which show you saw. Hello from Australia. Hi, Ilse. It's great to see you. I hope I pronounced your name right. Okay, so first things first, I am doing a giveaway. I am going to share some goodies with you guys. So let me tell you how you can enter the drawing that I will be doing later this month, giving away a bunch of prizes. First of all, if you register for one of my classes, you get 25 entries into the drawing. So I will be talking more about that. That is the best way that you can increase your odds to win some extra prizes in addition to the welcome package that I will already be sending you as a class student. We'll talk more about that. Or you can also share this Facebook Live video to your timeline. That will give you 5 additional entries. So I would love it if you guys wanted to enter the drawing. I have some fun stuff here. I'm going through my studio and kind of destashing some things and making space for other things. So that's where all my prizes are coming from, is me giving you a little piece of what's in my studio. And these are super fun. So in my online quilting classes, I like to include custom printed fabric from honestfabric.com. So Honest Fabric is a company that my husband and I launched in 2018, all specializing in fair trade, American made, and eco-friendly custom printed quilt tops. So I have some fun samples here. Here are some smaller ones. So this is a fun New York Beauty mini quilt that is printed and just ready to throw on your quilting machine to get quilted. This fabric is so soft and it drapes really beautifully. It's also anti-wrinkle and it is color fast and it won't fade and it won't bleed. So it is very beautiful, high quality fabric. So if you want to check out more of this fabric, go to honestfabric.com. So here's another one that is a compass star. Another one that is a dahlia flower. So these are actually mini quilts from my previous online quilting class called Mini Quilt Mayhem, which was really super fun. I'm actually going to be quilting on one of the mini quilts from that class so you can see it. So I have some mini quilts there. Let's see. Helen says, thank you so much. This does help. I will DM you my first go. You will know me on Instagram as and so I. Good. Do you not find basting spray gunks up the machine? Thank you so much again. Great question. When I tried Elmer's spray glue, if you try like a generic spray adhesive, it will gunk up your machine. You'll want to look for something that is quilt specific. So Sullivan's quilt basting spray you can get on Amazon, or that's where I've gotten it. There's another one called 505 that you might be able to find in the UK. I would reach out to Liz Holpen from the Cotton Patch. She is a quilt shop owner in Birmingham, UK. So she might be able to point you in the right direction. Tell her that I sent you because I love her so much. So, okay, so those mini quilts, these are some of the prizes. And then I'm actually going to be giving away full-size panels of the Mini Quilt Mayhem that you can win as well. So look how gorgeous these are. So in this class, it was so fun. We did 6 different mini quilts, and then we also did a table runner with hexagons on it. It was so super fun. So I have a few custom printed quilt tops that I'm also going to be giving away. So that's one of the colorways. Here is another one, the exact same designs, just in a different color scheme. Really super beautiful and fun. This was a really super fun class to take and to teach, I mean, and I'm sure it was fun to take. My students told me they enjoyed it. And then here's a custom printed quilt top that I gave away when I just taught my Shimmering Symphony masterclass in the spring. So it just was a few months ago, but this is a custom printed quilt top that has the Shimmering Symphony pattern printed onto it in 4 different color variations. So I have a few of these left over from that class that I'll be giving away as well. So again, you can enter to win 2 different ways. You can register for my class, either of the 2. That will give you 25 entries into the drawing, or you can share this video and that will give you 5 entries. I will be doing this drawing at the end of July. So make sure that you enter to win before then. Now, the other thing that's great about the month of July is that both of my new classes are in early bird pricing. So typically my online classes retail for $400, but if you register in July, you can register for $325. And I also have a coupon code for you guys. So the coupon code to get $25 off that additional early bird pricing is 25 extra bucks. So use this coupon code below and you can take another $25 off your registration. So this code will be valid all the way until the class starts on September 9th. But the sooner you register, the cheaper it will be. So if you just register in July, you'll get the cheapest price. You can use this coupon code and you will be entered to win some extra prizes along with the goodies that I'll send you in your class. Let's see, what comments do we have? Hello, Karlee. What's the difference between your two classes? I will be jumping into that more throughout this Facebook Live, so stay tuned. Christine says, that was an awesome class, Mini Quilt Mayhem. Thank you, Christine. You are so sweet. Ricky says, the graffiti class is awesome. I had so much fun doing it in 2020. Oh, you guys are so awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think reviews go a really long way, so I appreciate you telling people. Susan said, I did see someone use Elmer school glue 60% with water to base quilts, and she said it washed out. Oh, okay. That's very interesting. It's not so much that I'm worried about the glue washing out afterwards. It's the glue being in there while you're quilting. So that's what I would be more concerned with, is you don't want it to be gumming up your machine or your needle in the process of quilting the quilt. Anything that's water soluble or water based will wash out after you're done. There is another quilt basting spray called KK2000 by Sulky, and that is not water based. It's oh gosh, I can't remember what substrate it is, but basically it moves away with heat. So if you like iron your quilt after you use that spray, the spray, it goes away. So I don't personally like that one as much, just because I like to iron my quilts. Susan says, hey girl, hey, from North Carolina. Hello, Susan. It's good to see you guys. Okay, so let me tell you about these two classes that I have coming up. So in all of my online classes, since they're online, we don't get to like gaze into each other's eyes while I'm teaching you. I like to still make them really special. And so I always send out a welcome package with every class that I offer. So the two classes that I have coming up this fall, the first one is Graffiti Quilting, which is like my all-time best-selling, popular, by demand, always I teach that once a year at least, and this year I'm teaching it twice a year because so many people have recommended it to their friends, and it is really just a super, super valuable jump into free motion quilting. So graffiti quilting is one. And then the second class I'm teaching is called Lone Star Border Bliss. And it's based on this gorgeous quilt that I pieced and will never piece again because it was really hard. But I will show you that as well. So let me talk first about graffiti quilting. So graffiti quilting is all about taking every single motif that you can quilt and smashing them together all into one quilt. So graffiti quilting is a free motion quilting technique that I coined back in 2014. So I published the first graffiti quilting book in 2014. And after that book came out, it kind of took off like wildfire. It was very successful, and I was very fortunate to be able to travel around the world teaching graffiti quilting. I went to the Cotton Patch in the UK in Birmingham. I was able to go to Scotland and Ireland and Canada, and also do a southern coast tour across Australia. So I went to Sydney and Wollongong and Geelong and Adelaide and Perth, all over the course of like 3 weeks, teaching for quilt shops and quilt guilds. And it was so, so cool. But what I learned after publishing the book and then teaching the class over and over again was that there was even more to graffiti quilting that hadn't come up yet. Like, it was still very much being born. And so in 2017, I published Graffiti Quilting Volume 2. And since then, I've been teaching that. And so, I don't know, maybe there might be a Volume 3 at some point in time. I don't know. I still have so much more that I have been learning since 2017 when the second book was published. So a graffiti quilting book will be included in your welcome package, whether it is Volume 2 or Volume 3. You might just have to register for the class and find out when you rip open your welcome package. So graffiti quilting is very special to me because a lot of the things that I was drawing in my sketchbooks before I ever learned how to quilt are graffiti quilting based. They just weren't applied to fabric and thread yet, which is really super cool. So graffiti quilting is kind of my love language to the quilting world. It's a little piece of me that I feel like I've been able to contribute. And still, almost 10 years later, it's my favorite thing to teach. And I think so many people have learned so many quilting skills from learning graffiti quilting because it encompasses so many different motifs of free motion quilting. So graffiti quilting is a really, really wonderful class to take if you're new to quilting or if you're really just looking to level up your free motion quilting skills, whether you're at level 1 and you want to get to level 100, or if you're at level 50 and you want to get to level 100. There is really something for everybody in graffiti quilting. And those of you who are watching and have taken the class can attest to how it's kind of like a very enjoyable baptism by fire, right? You'll learn so much. But here's the other thing that's really great about my classes is that they're spread out over the course of 8 weeks. One thing that I really loved about teaching in person was that I was able to make eye contact connections with people. However, the hard part of it was kind of forcing everybody to drink from a fire hose over the course of 2 days because I just had to give everything that I could and then hope that they would retain as much as they could. So the nice thing about teaching online is that it's digital. You can watch and rewatch the videos. I'm here to answer questions. And then as you really internalize the processes that I teach you, you can come back to it again and again and again. And so it's really, really a great bang for your buck because not only do we do an 8-week course, but then I leave that group open and accessible so that you can re-access that content over and over again until you're satisfied, until you feel like you've gotten everything you wanted out of the class. Susan says she didn't cause a problem. She said it didn't cause a problem with the sewing machine. Oh, okay. So we were talking about the quilt basting spray. So good. That makes me really happy. I didn't have the same experience, but I was also very new to quilting. It could have been that I was using too much spray. I don't know. So thank you for that insight. Verna says your welcome packages are awesome. And Ricky says those caramels though. Okay. So I include homemade caramels in every single welcome package that I send out. And for those of you who have taken my classes, you'll know the deeper story behind why I do that. And for those of you who are new, you will get homemade caramels that you will become addicted to. So I also include the recipe cards so that when you inevitably go through withdrawals from my homemade caramels, you'll be able to make your own fix. But yeah, so the welcome packages include lots of goodies. So there's a book, custom printed fabric. I always like to include a cute little snip clip holder from Honest Fabric. I also give you a nice pair of mini scissors from Famore Cutlery. So, and then there's, miscellaneous other things in there depending on kind of what I'm working on. Sometimes there's postcards or stickers or different things. So, they are really, really fun. It's kind of fun little happy mail that bonds us all together before we start an online class that can sometimes otherwise feel a little bit lonely. So, yeah, I think that will be super awesome. So graffiti quilting really is a really, really good skill builder. If you are looking for the technique and the skills, graffiti quilting is the class to take. Some quilting classes are more project-based. Others are more technique-based. Others are more like muscle memory-based. Graffiti quilting is very much technique-based. So your end project will look different than everybody else's, but the skills that you learn throughout the class are really going to get your level higher. It's an elevating course for your free motion quilting skills. So let me show you a few graffiti quilting quilts that I have made. So this one is my absolute favorite. If you own a copy of the first graffiti quilting book, then you'll probably recognize this quilt. This was the very first graffiti quilting quilt that I made, that I finished, that I knew was something bigger than just me doodling on fabric. So this one is very special to me for that reason. This is another fun one. We'll talk about how to create compositions using the graffiti quilting methods and formulas and layouts. Here is another fun one. This one is a little bit older. I always say that because I think it's just not my favorite one, but I just always preface it by being like, okay, if you don't like this one, it's because it was earlier on in my journey before my skills got even better. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally just like projecting. So, but this is another one. And then let's move to the overhead camera and I can show you a few more. Now, before we do that, the other thing I wanted to say is that I'm really happy that you guys are taking the time to watch this free video because this will give you a really great idea of what my classes, how those operate and run. So my husband is a computer whisperer and together we have really worked super hard to come up with a layout and a workflow where I can really give you as much quilting expertise as possible, but also make it beautiful and give you really good views of the quilts. The ability to kind of, it's almost like all of these views, you're just peeking over my shoulder and seeing exactly what I'm seeing. So anyways, just wanted to like, you know, give him a little verbal affirmation to everybody because he is amazing. And so I hope that you'll notice the fun in-camera editing and jumps. Like I feel like it's so cool when I can be like, now this angle, and then it's like, bah, right there. So anyways, I wanted to point that out because this is another part of why we love doing this together. And why I love teaching online is because I feel like I can really give you my all in a way that you can see everything really nicely. So I'm really proud of that. Marge says, can you get the goodies without the class? They sound awesome. Nope. Sorry. Well, when I say nope, I mean the homemade caramels. The homemade caramels I only reserve for my online students, my class students. The other stuff that's included in the welcome package, the book and the coloring book and the fabric and the, we don't sell these. So if you really want a snip clip, you got to take the class. But yeah, as far as the caramels, we got to hang out together because they're a love language thing for me. So it's one of the ways that I like to show my students of love because homemade caramels are a labor of love. They take a while to make. So, yeah, thanks for asking. I can't wait to see you in class, Marge, because I know you're gonna be happy with all the goodies. Okay, so let's go to the overhead camera and I can show you some other quilts that I've made with the graffiti quilting method. So this quilt is actually really cool because I digitized this design and then stitched it out. So this is actually a computerized quilting design that you can download and stitch out yourself as well. This one is free motion quilted, graffiti quilting, but after I quilted this, I also digitized it. So one came before the other and then one came before the other this time. So it's kind of cool. So you'll be able to look at these quilts in the class and we really break down the concept really well so that it is a lot more approachable and like hopefully right now you're looking at this and being like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. She's amazing. I love her so much. Like she must have sold her soul to the devil to be able to quilt that good. And that makes sense. That's what most people think when they see my quilts. But after you take my class, there really is so much that I break down and then we build it back together so that you can have the same foundation that I've got because I show you how to lay those brick by brick. And I didn't sell my soul to the devil, at least not to be a quilter. So just kidding. Now I'm getting weird. So let me show you a couple more here. So these are some other fun quilts that we will talk about in the classes. We'll talk about different layouts that you can use and how you can apply all of those cool different motifs that you learn on their own. And then we put them into different compositions. Okay, here's another one. Kind of fun. And then this last one I'm going to show you is one of my absolute favorites. This one is called Russian Mosque. And that's just one of my very favorites. So this one is free motion quilted, but I did also digitize a computerized quilting design based on this style and layout, but it's not exactly the same. So kind of fun. Okay, so how are people? Did I miss any comments or questions? Let's see. Christy said, how can I share this? There should be a share button at the bottom of the screen. In fact, let me just pull up my iPad. Let's see if I can pull it up here on Facebook and see if I can share it. There should be a share button though, so let's double check. Here. At the top of the comments? Oh, okay. So if you go to the comment section, Andrew is telling me that at the top of the comment section, there is a share button. So I want to find my own event. Let's see. I don't know why I can't find it. That's so weird. Okay, here we go. Okay, so if I click on the live video, okay, so let's go to the iPad screen. This is another awesome view. Whoa, so like Inception like. Okay, so right here, if I were watching this myself, there's a share button just right below the live video. So it says like, comment, and share. So I'm going to close that. So the share button should be somewhere around there. Yeah, it is a shareable video, so that is good. Okay, Susie says the top share shows who shared it. The bottom share will share the video. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, it looks like 5 of you have shared it already, so thank you very much. Susan says the real goodies is you teaching the class. Oh, Susan. Susan's an OG. She's we've got to spend lots of time together, so thanks, Susan. You are too nice. And it's true. I am a total goodie. I'm like totally the prize. Just kidding. Halfway kidding. Okay, so let me get my iPad back to where I want it. All right, so graffiti quilting, so super fun, super popular class. You will learn a ton. Even if you don't want to do graffiti quilting on every single quilt that you do, it really, really is such a good skill builder class. So I would highly recommend taking it. There is so much to learn. Yeah, I really love teaching it. And it's so fun to go through that course with the students. And it's like aha moments, like people saying, I've been trying to figure out that motif for so long and you like helped me just make it click. That's like my favorite thing. It feeds my soul. That's what I want to be. I want to be your biggest quilting cheerleader because we all know the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like we all know that whatever we want to be good at, we got to put in the work and time. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it alone. And I like to be there to cheer you on along the way, help you with tips and tricks and pointers and whatever I can, and hopefully help you to skyrocket your quilting skills faster than I did. Because when I was quilting, I pretty much was just getting yelled at by the quilt police all the time. I mean, I didn't like go out of my way to like take classes from nice people. I just would like try to quilt and then show it to like really crotchety traditional quilt guilds and then get yelled at and then go home and try again the next month. And then I learned to not be in certain guilds. And anyways, so I hope that I can help expedite your process of quilting by really just breaking things down into very digestible steps. So Joanne says, are you going to demo today? Yes, I am. So I have a quilt here and then also I have a quilt loaded on my longarm machine. So I'm going to demonstrate on both the sit down and the stand-up quilting machines today, which will be a lot of fun. So that's a graffiti quilting. I wanted to tell you guys about that. The second class that I'm teaching is brand spanking new. And it's called Lone Star Border Bliss. And it kind of goes in line with the other classes I've taught that included the custom printed quilt tops. Like I did Free Motion Frenzy, and then I did Mini Quilt Mayhem, and now I'm doing Lone Star Border Bliss. So let me show you the quilt that this class is based on. So this quilt I pieced, and I have to tell you guys, I'm not a piecer. I learned how to quilt before I learned how to piece, and I fell so in love with quilting that I typically try to skip piecing whenever possible. So this quilt, the fact that I pieced this is like a big deal for me. It may not seem like anything crazy, like it's not like a Judy Niemeyer crazy quilt. But for me, it was a huge skill builder. So I wanted to show it to you, and then I'll talk about how that morphed into what is now the Lone Star Border Bliss class. Christine says, we don't need the quilt police. You're right, we don't. I mean, unless they're there to help you learn the rules that actually make your quilt the way it's supposed to look, like, I understand why the rules are in place. So the quilt police, I guess they have their purpose to say, like, oh, make sure your seam allowance is 1/4 inch or else your seams are not going to line up like that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense for the quilt police to, like, do that. But when they're like, oh, that curl, the way you did that is wrong and ugly and you should feel bad, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take your badge away. So yeah, quilting police, they serve their purpose, but we can govern ourselves. Okay. All right. So this quilt, I actually started piecing about 5 years ago, and I'm like debating if I want to even open the whole thing because it's pretty big, but it is symmetrical. So if I show you 1/4 of it, you'll be able to see what the whole quilt looked like. So that's what I'm going to do. So it's a Lone Star quilt, and probably maybe many of you have made a Lone Star quilt before. I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously not the first person to make a Lone Star quilt. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but was always really scared of as well. But I had this fabric. This is Kaleidoscope Solids from Allison Glass. And then I also had this gorgeous Quantum fabric by Giuseppe Robato. He goes by Juicy Juice on Instagram. And they are my two favorite fabric designers. And so when I got this fabric, I knew I wanted to do something really cool with it. So let's go to the overhead and I'll show you kind of what I did. So with the piecing, I first did a Lone Star, right? So you can see that there. And then I fussy cut this fabric. Whoops, let me scoot it. Oh my gosh, this quilt is so heavy, which I love snuggling with it, but it's so heavy to move around. So this is the fussy cut fabric by Giuseppe that I used called Quantum. And then I kind of just improv this as I went. And then really the real fun began with the quilting. So I want to show you a little bit more of the quilting because that obviously is where I shine. So it was really fun to do that. And then around the edges, I used graffiti quilting. So this ended up being a really great example of how you can use graffiti quilting on a functional quilt to enhance what you have pieced. So really cool. I would hold this whole thing up, but really it is so heavy. I backed it with a fleece blanket from Walmart because I'm ghetto like that. And actually they are amazing. I have no shame at all in using a fleece blanket from Walmart because there are no seams, which is awesome. And I can find the size I want and it's super soft and it's like $15. So that sold me on that. So when I finished this quilt, I had so much fun quilting this quilt that I thought I would really love to do this again. And then Lone Star Border Bliss was born because I thought, I bet you there are other people who think this quilt is just as beautiful and would like to learn how to quilt it too. Artistic Quilting by Denise. She says quilting is the best part. Yes, I agree. I feel like we're all in good company here agreeing that the quilting is the best part. Piecing is wonderful, and I get that everybody has their own, strokes, different strokes for different folks, and my stroke is quilting. So I'm guessing it's yours too if you're here watching this. Susan says, I loved watching this quilt come to life on Instagram. That binding is so cool. Thank you. Thank you. This quilt is very, very sentimental to me. And I actually wrote a little bit about it on my blog because I thought, what can I do that will make me feel like I'm back in 2012? I know, I'll write a blog post. So I wrote a blog post about it. So you can see that on my website if you want to hear about the sentimental part of this quilt. But anyways, I wanted to quilt this again. And so I knew that I was never going to piece it again. And so I went to my computer because, like my husband, I am also a computer nerd, just of the graphic side. I can't write any code, but hand me Photoshop and I can forge you a document. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't, but I'm really good at Photoshop and Illustrator. And so I thought instead of piecing this again and having all the same anxiety that I had while quilting it because I knew how much time I'd put into the piecing, I'm going to design this again in Illustrator and print it onto fabric and then I can quilt it 100 times. I can print it 100 times, and I can print it for other people and they can quilt it along with me. So that's where Lone Star Border Bliss, this brand new class, came from. So when you register for this class, the cool thing about it, it includes your piece of custom printed quilt top, and the fabric comes in 3 different sizes. So this class will be great whether you're on a sit down quilting machine or a domestic machine, or if you have a big long arm quilting machine, you can do the king size pretty easily. I mean, everything is easier on a stand up quilting machine. We talked about this at the beginning of this video about how to maneuver a large quilt on a sit-down machine. Anyways, so the cool thing is when you register for the class, you can choose what size quilt top you want based on your either your muscles, because you could do a sit-down machine with a king size quilt, but like expect to like look like Arnold Schwarzenegger when you're done because your muscles are gonna explode. Or you can do a small one if you want it to be a wall hanging. Yeah, it's open to you to decide what you want to do. Helen says, I love your humor. I can forge you a document. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that on the internet. But I mean, it's true. I used to forge my dad's signature all the time to get out of class so that I could skip math and go to the art room. And how I graduated high school, I have no idea. I mean, probably everyone was sick of me. So they're like, just give her diploma. Let her go. Let her go. So, okay. So custom printed fabric, right? So that is included in your tuition. Let me move this guy over there. So let me show you the fabric. Super, super cool. So I can't show you the small one because that's what's loaded on my frame right now. In this demonstration, I'm going to quilt on it for you. So I have it loaded onto my frame, ready to go. But even the small size is still a really good size. So there's a king size, which is 88 by 104. There's a medium size, which is 68 by 80. And then the small is a 51 by 60. So even the small size is really, really awesome for a lap quilt, but it's also not too big to be a wall hanging. So let me show you the king size fabric and how gorgeous this is. And this fabric, you guys, it's so soft. It is so flowy and nice. I think you're really going to love quilting on it. It's very, very smooth to quilt on. So this is the king size quilt, and the borders in this one are about 2.5 inches. I want to say they're 2.5 or maybe 3. You know what? I have a handy dandy ruler right here. Let me measure. Let's see. Yeah, 3 inches. So we got a 3-inch border for the king size quilt. So obviously the class is called Lone Star Border Bliss. So I'm going to show you various ways to quilt a Lone Star quilt where we interpret those diamonds. And then I'm going to show you a bunch of different borders that you can use on this quilt, obviously, as well as other quilts that have borders. And then I didn't include this in the title, but between these star points, there's also this awesome half square triangle shape. So there's some cool motifs that will go in there. So this is the king size. And then I have just finished basting the medium size. And again, I'm using this really soft, fluffy backing because it is so nice. It's so comfy and soft. And I also love using a fleece backing, especially if I know I'm going to quilt something fairly densely, because you can quilt quite a bit and still have a nice fluffy loft to your quilt if you use a fluffy backing. So Minky is awesome. I'm just too cheap for Minky. Like, Minky's just too rich for my blood. I can't bring myself to pay like $20 a yard for Minky when I can get a whole king size quilt backing from Walmart for $17. And of course it's not the same, but it's good enough for me. So this is the medium size one. So obviously a little smaller than the king, but still a very good sized quilt top. And I have gone through and just basted all of the main stitching lines on this quilt as I'm gearing up to quilt my samples for the class that's starting in the fall. So you can see those quilting lines. But yeah, So when you register for this class, you can pick any size that you want. It's not going to change the price of your tuition. Normally, these quilt tops on honestfabric.com for small, medium, and large are $80, $100, and $120. So you're getting a really great value in your welcome package by registering for the class because it includes that custom printed fabric, and you can pick any size you want. So let me show you guys how easy it is to register for the classes, and we'll kind of get that out of the way, and then we will jump in and do some drawing and some quilting. So to do this, we're going to go to karleeporter.com. Oh, there's me with Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms. No big deal. Just like two of the coolest quilting people ever. Okay, so up at the top, you're going to click Shop and Education. Okay, so there's three things here. The first one is the actual Lone Star Border Bliss class. And you can see it's on sale. And then when you come here, this is where you would choose what size quilt top you want. So you can do the small, you can do the medium, or you can do the large. So let's say I want to do the king size. I'm going to click Add to Cart. But then let's say I also want a small, or let's say I'm undecided and I'm not sure. You can also buy additional quilt tops at a discounted price when you check out, and then I will ship all of it in your welcome package. So let's say I wanted a small and I also wanted a king size. Okay, and let's just say that I love Karlee so much that I want to take all her classes. So you can also come to Graffiti Quilting, and if you want to register for that one, just click Add to Cart. Now the coupon code that I'm sharing with you, you can use it on both classes. You can take $25 off each class. You don't have to pick between the two. So if I come to View Cart, down below my list, there's a little coupon spot, and I'm going to type 25 extra bucks. It doesn't matter if it's lowercase or capital. Okay, so it applied the code, and now you can see I've got $50 off because I'm registered for both classes. Okay, so super easy. Just go register now. This will give you 50 entries into the drawing to win even more custom printed fabric from honestfabric.com, which is awesome. So yeah, super easy peasy to do that. Okay, did I miss any questions or anything? Awesome. Okay, cool. So I want to show you how I like to teach my my quilting, because I find that the best way to practice is a combination of things. Obviously, quilting, duh, but then drawing as well. So sometimes I get so much anxiety if I'm trying to do all my quote practice on my quilting machine. I get this weird anxiety that I am convinced is like generational anxiety from my mom. Like I hear her voice in the back of my head saying, "Oh, we can't spend more than $5 a yard on fabric." Like I was like very frugal as a kid. And so when I start using fabric, sometimes I get in my head and think like, "Oh, am I wasting this? It's a waste of money." And that's really hard. But I found that if I can practice drawing, it's way easier for me to throw away a piece of paper than it is to throw away a piece of fabric. So I like to practice drawing and quilting, and I can't take my quilting machine with me everywhere I go as much as I would like to. And so having a sketchbook with me is a lot more feasible to practice. And then since I got my iPad, now I do all of my drawing practice digitally, which makes it even easier. What's easier than throwing away a piece of paper? Just hitting the delete button if I totally hate something that I made. So let me show you how cool it is that you can see exactly what I'm drawing on my iPad as we go. So I'm using an app called Procreate, and I want to show you just kind of how things would work in the classes. So this is what the diagram looks like for that quilt that I made, the original one that I pieced. So this is actually just a photograph of the quilt top before I got it to the quilting machine. So you can see there, I actually hadn't even added the blue rounded corners yet. But what I did was just took a flat shot of the quilt so that I could start trying to decide how I was going to quilt things. Now, it's kind of hard to see those quilting lines, so I'm going to turn the opacity down on my original, and you can start to see my schematic show up better. So I can still see my lines, but I'm going to turn that down in opacity. And then on my other layer, that's where I would be able to practice my drawing. So before I even took my quilt to my quilting machine, I knew exactly what I was going to do for each of the sections while I was quilting. So let me show you one of the mini quilts that we just used for the Mini Quilt Mayhem class. This one is called the Carpenter Star, and you can see here the schematic that I used for that class. So on my quilting machine, I have that same fabric, and I've quilted the center star as well as these white blocks, and now what I've got left are these like feathers around the edge. I don't know what you'd call them. I don't know piecing terms very much because, like I said, I don't really piece unless I have to, and I don't have to. No one can force me to do it, so I mostly quilt. Leah says, I think I need to get Procreate. It is a very useful app. I will say I bought it way back when, and it was only $8. It was the best $8 I ever spent on an app. I think now it's like 15 or something. I would spend $100. If it cost $100, I still would have bought it. Anyways, okay, so in my layer here, you can see I've got the different schematics. So there's just my design by itself. And if I want my drawing lines to show up really nicely, I can turn the opacity down on that layer. And then here are my different schematic layers. So I want to show you how I would draw these designs, because when I teach you new designs through drawing, I show you the path that we would take to quilt them. Barb says, hi, Karlee. It's nice to see you teaching again. I keep forgetting to use Procreate. That's okay. It's there when you need it. So Jenny says, I also have it and it was less than $10. I use it often for quilting plans. Yes, it is the number one way that I plan out my quilts is with this app. In fact, what is super cool is if you do quilting for hire, you can have someone send you a picture of their quilt top and load it into Procreate and start drawing as if you were quilting. And then you can send that back to the client for approval, which I find to be really cool, because then when I actually start quilting, I have a little peace of mind knowing that they kind of have an idea of what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm also going to turn these layers down. In fact, actually what we really only need is this outside layer, because this is what we're going to be working on for this demonstration. So I'm going to turn that layer down almost all the way, and then we're going to do a new layer above that. Okay, so I'm just using a regular mono weight brush for this on a new layer. Leah says, sounds better than my scribbling on a sketch pad. It is very convenient. I do have to say it's very nice. Okay, so let's do this block right here. So the way that I broke up the Carpenter Star is with each of these sets of 3, I did a design that was symmetrical. Okay, so we'll start with this one that's kind of on the easier side. So the first thing that I did on my quilting machine, was stitched in the ditch. So I can represent that here by just doing some straight lines. And there's a snap line tool in Procreate to give you perfectly straight lines. So that's what I'm doing there. Okay, so with this first design, it's the same thing in each of these 3 sections. So what we're going to do first, everything is going to start down at that point with each one. So the first thing I'm going to do is a loop. And I'm kind of using this center color to keep it symmetrical. Okay, so I'm kind of using that symmetrically. Okay, and then after I do that loop, I'm going to come and do another one up that line and loop to one side and then the other and then back down. Okay, and now I've ended right here. So I'm going to go to the next one and do the same thing. So a loop and then up that line, loop to one side and the other side and back down. Okay, and then I can rotate and do the next one. How cool is that? So just imagine that we're quilting this. And you know what? Let's actually go quilt this. Okay, Sienna says, is Procreate only for Apple? From what I understand, yes. I haven't heard of it being offered on Android. I'm a total Apple person, so I cannot help you with Windows or Android or anything else like that. Okay, so let's move to the quilting machine, and I have my needle in the down position and I'm ready to start quilting. So I'm going to quilt exactly what I just drew for you. Well, not exactly, but obviously as best as I can. Okay, since they all start and end down in the same spot, so this is the section that we're doing right now. In fact, I'm going to try to show off a little bit and do it sideways for the best view of the camera. So I'm going to start with, if I feel a little nervous, I can mark it first. So let's do one where we mark it. So starting down at the bottom, I'm going to start with a loop and then back down. And then I'm going to do another one like that. Okay, so now we have our marking line if we need it. If you feel like you need it just to kind of get your courage up, sometimes I need that, then that's awesome. Okay, so there's our quilting. Let's do this one and this one as well. Susan says, what are you using to mark with? This Adger Choco Ace pen, just generic pen from Amazon. Nothing fancy. You can just pick your favorite marking pen and use that. Please try with a piece of wasted cloth before use. Please take off a cap with hands, not with a mouth. I think it's from Asia somewhere because that feels a little Google Translate-y to me. But I also don't have that problem of taking pen lids off with my mouth, so I'm good. I'm clear there. Okay, so there we have it. There's one of our sections done. Okay, let's go back to the iPad and do another one. All right, so let's see, we could do any of these. I guess we'll just move to the next side. Okay, so again, I've already stitched in the ditch here. Okay, so this one is also symmetrical, and I probably could stitch in the ditch with these lines, but I don't know if I necessarily have to. Okay, so here's how it's going to go. So I'm going to do each one. So we're going to start with a small flower petal and then an echo of that. And we're just going to work our way up this line. Okay. So then I'm going to go another flower petal. Okay. And then next thing I'm going to do is clamshells where I fill in the rest of that space. So see how I'm kind of hugging those edges. And I'm making that symmetrical as well. So 1, 2, 1, 2, right? And then one in the middle. Okay. And then when I travel back, I'm going to do a little shortcut in each of these clamshells. Like that. Okay. And then I can go back down that line and now use that edge for my next one. So flower petal, and then see how I'm using those color changes to keep my flower petals straight. Like I don't want to go like this. See how it's off base? Okay, so I'm going to try to stay as straight as possible using that color in the center as my guide. Okay, and then finally my clamshells. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and then little shortcuts. Okay, and then finally come back down to the bottom, do the last one again. And then my shortcuts. Okay, so if we're feeling a little bit worried about making this symmetrical or making sure that our proportions are right, what we can actually do on our fabric is just mark some points. So we can say like, okay, if I make this a little bit softer so we can see over it. Okay, so I can say if I were to divide this line into thirds, that's about where my flower petal tops would be, right? So on my fabric, I can mark thirds, and then I would know, okay, that's when I hit that flower petal, it needs to be on this line, but then it also needs to be a third of the way up. Okay, so let's go to the quilting machine. And instead of drawing the entire design like we did here, we can just give ourselves some marking points so that we know that each of our three will be kind of symmetrical. So we can even take a ruler here, right? So we can say, all right, it's kind of hard to see in the blue. Yeah, it might be hard for you guys to read this ruler just because these numbers are little, but you can trust me, I promise. Promise I know how to read a ruler. I did skip a lot of math classes, but not that many. Okay, so from 2 to 8, so this is 6 inches, so that means every 2 inches we can just mark a little dot. Okay, and then again, so every 2 inches, mark a little dot. And right on that center line, mark a little dot. Okay, can you see those dots, Andrew? Okay, let's see. Oh, sorry. Okay, right here. So boop, boop. Okay, so let's get over there. And I can use a ruler here, or I can just freehand it. I'm going to freehand it because I'm a renegade and I'm too lazy to go get a ruler. Okay, so same thing again. So I know that my top flower petal is going to hit here, which means my bottom flower underneath should just be about a ½ inch below it. Okay, so we're going to start with flower petal, and then an echo, and then another flower petal, and then an echo. Okay, and now I'm going to do my clamshells. So two on the side, 1 in the middle. Okay, and now I'm going to do my little shortcuts in between. Let's see if I can do it this way so that you can see it better. Okay, so when I'm using my sit down like this, another thing I can do instead of letting it drape off onto my lap is roll it up and then put my hands on it and use it kind of almost like a handle, but not quite. But just kind of using it with my hands and my forearms, I can kind of hold it in place. Okay, let me pull this out and trim my thread. Okay, so you can see it here. Let's take it to the overhead camera and I can give you a little better view with some nice lighting. Okay, so there's the first one that we did, right? Okay, and then there's the second one. So for this, I'm using like a light gray silver thread because I wanted something that would show up on the white, but then also something light enough to show up on the dark color. So hopefully you can see that all right. I didn't want the thread to be too overbearing, but I did want it to match all of the thread colors. So let me hold it up and away for a second and have you see it there. All right, so you can kind of see that texture, but it's not too overpowering. I didn't want it to overpower the actual design of the fabric either. So technically, the thread I'm using is Sulky 40 weight rayon. So for those of you who are interested. Parm says, can we rewatch the video? I missed the first hour. Yes, absolutely, you can. You can find it right here on my page, Karlee Porter Design. And I will probably send out a replay email on my newsletter. If you guys aren't a part of my email newsletter, let me show you where you can easily sign up for that. So going back to karleeporter.com. So if you go to the main page on karleeporter.com and you just scroll to the bottom. Oh, look how cute. I made that. It usually doesn't seem to work on when I'm streaming, but anyways, scroll below that and then you'll find this picture of me from 2014 that I should update but haven't. And then right above that it says join my newsletter. Just put in your first name, last name, and email. That is always going to be the best way to stay informed about things that I have going on. I promise you I do not share your email addresses with people, and I try to be very respectful. I don't send out, like, I can't remember the last time I sent out more than 2 emails in a month. So most of the time I typically just send out one email newsletter on the first day of each month, kind of sharing what's going on. Or if there's something that I really want to make sure people don't miss out on, I'll send a follow-up. But anyways, so yes, you can rewatch this video. Thank you for being here, and go ahead and share it with your friends. I would love for you to share that. Okay, so, okay, awesome. I'm just making sure I didn't miss any notes. Okay, so I want to show you the actual Lone Star Border Bliss schematic. That's what I'm calling it, the diagrams for what I'm going to teach in the class. I'm not going to show you all of them because that's what the class is all about. But I want to show you how we're going to quilt one of the samples. So instead of basing the class on the size of quilt top that you have, I'm just basing it on doing something different density, because you might want the king size quilt, but you might choose to do the like loosest density quilting, either based on your skill level or your comfort level, or if you want it to be like a really fluffy, snuggly quilt and you don't want to over quilt it. And then you could also take the really dense diagram that I have for you and do it on the small panel for a wall hanging where the density is super tight. So we're going to talk about all those things in class so that you can decide what schematic you want to use based on the quilt top that you've purchased. So I'm just going to show you one of the many layouts that I have for this quilt. So let's go back to the iPad. So just like the schematic that I have here for the Mini Quilt Mayhem class that we did last year, I've started my schematic for this custom printed quilt top. So there is a small, medium, and large. I'm actually going to rename those to be like loose, medium, and dense, because really it's based on the density of the quilting. So this one is the loose size. So depending on the quilt top size you have or the functionality of the quilt, what you desire. And I want to show you how we're going to get these two inside filler designs. And actually, we can do this center circle as well. So consider this your free sample of the Lone Star Border Bliss class. And if you want more, you got to register, but I think you're going to want more because I have a lot of really good stuff up my sleeve for this class. Okay, so here is the quilt top in its all its beauty. I didn't want you to think that the fabric is going to be less saturated than what you're seeing here. So this is full saturation, but I am going to turn the opacity down on this file just so that we can really see that schematic nicely. So see how I'm adjusting that. So I'm going to turn it up. Okay, and then for the small, let's go to the star. And I'm going to soften that as well. You may not even be able to see it, which is fine because we're going to redo it here on screen. Okay, and I'm going to start a new layer and we're going to go through it. Jenny says, great to hear density options will be discussed. Good to have wide application. Yes, absolutely. And I realize that everybody is at a different skill level and different machine throat space. So it's okay. Gidget says, wish I could do this. You can. I'm telling you, that's literally why I'm here, to teach you how to do this. You can do this. I promise you. Just, it's going to take work. It's going to take effort, but you can. You really can do it. I have to tell you, I have had students say the exact same thing at the beginning of classes, only to never say it again. And you got to give yourself more credit because it's not hard. It just takes time. And sometimes things need to spell out and be spelled out, and that's exactly why I'm here. So don't worry about it. You're going to do great. Christine says, how are the boys? They are doing wonderful. Thank you for asking. For those of you who don't know, I have 3 sons, and they're so cute. So I just have a house full of boys. My dog is a girl, so that's nice. Jenny says, I see a design that needs more practice. I'll buy a new sketch pad before September 1st. Good. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Jean says, register just for the caramels. Karlee will send you. She's the most awesome of teachers. Thanks, Jean. You are so nice. I didn't even pay her to say that. Isn't that crazy? That's the cool thing about it, is she's right. And I didn't even have to pay her to say it. Judy says, you make it look so easy. I do, and it is easier than you think. I'm just showing you that it's easier than you think it is. I'm not like doing any sort of magic tricks, despite popular belief. I wish I was a witch. I wish I had some magic up my sleeves, but no, just elbow grease. That's all that's in there. Okay, so let's check out this diagram, and I'm going to show you how I got this set up. So the first thing that I wanted to do to interpret this quilt block is I wanted to give the Lone Star design a little bit of space to shine. And I also wanted to make sure that the quilting design that I have in here also has a little bit of room. I didn't want to just do this curly design right up next to my ribbon candy. And so the first thing I did was put a border in each of those Lone Stars. Okay, so this would represent just stitching in the ditch for each of those sections. Okay, and down in the bottom center of the Lone Star, I have learned, well, okay, I've seen a couple Lone Star quilts being quilted where they start in the very center and all of the ditches are stitched in. So it all comes to this one singular point. And I don't super love that. I think having something in the middle just kind of helps to have the quilt lay flatter without it all coming to a center point. So that's why I did not do that. So in the center of the quilt, right where all of those points touch, I put a circle. Okay, so there's my circle. Jenny says, it is easy, but the sequence sometimes needs practice. Yep, you're exactly right. It's going to take practice and it's going to take work, but your skill will come along with that. You never get worse by practicing. So I saw you stitched in the ditch. Are you going to stitch over that? So for part of it, yes. So when I stitched in the ditch on the quilts to get ready for this demonstration and for the class that's coming in the fall, I stitched in the main lines, but I didn't do any of the design stitching because I'll be filming that and sharing that in the class so you guys can watch that and how I quilt that out. So these straight lines would represent stitching in the ditch. Okay, so let's start with this curl design here. And we're going to kind of break it into a couple things. So the first thing that we have is we have a curl in this area, and then we have a curl in this area, and we have some feather plumes here and some feather plumes here. Okay, so that's kind of filling in the space. And then at the top of this, we have some circles. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that we can do this. Oh, sorry, I missed the other feather plumes. So there's feather plumes down here, and then also circles right here. Okay, so that's kind of the crude version of how we are filling in this shape. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of those, and we're going to build each one of these up. So when I do curl designs, I really like to make them look like a shape. Okay, now a shape like this is just like, okay, cool, it's a curl, right? I want to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit, make it a little fancier. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start with the skeleton of the curl. Okay, now when I get to the inside of this and I'm starting to come back out, instead of just changing direction and coming back out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a teardrop at the top, and then I'm going to kiss that existing skeleton as I go. So I'm just making these like wedge shapes like that. Okay. And then coming back down. Now, when I say there's two ways that you can do this, you can stitch one and then stop and cut your thread and jump, or you can draw this whole thing so that you can do it as a continuous line. Okay. So what I'll probably do is just stop and jump because, okay, here's another quilting police thing that I'm just like kind of over. Okay. I feel like so often in free motion quilting, it's like everything has to be a continuous line. Like, I should never have to stop and cut my thread and jump to the next thing because heaven forbid I use 4 extra seconds. No, it needs to be so efficient that everything should just be a continuous line. And I'm like, okay, I get that, especially for an edge to edge. Like, yeah, you need efficiency. But sometimes there are just designs that are just going to look better when you add things to them, and they're going to be easier to quilt when you don't have to try to make it in continuous line. Okay, so as I draw this, I'm going to show you where we would stop and cut our thread and jump and move to the next thing. Now, if you're someone who likes to bury all your threads, more power to you. I'm a tie-off girl. I feel like a tie-off is fine. I don't like machine quilting. Those stitches are pretty tight, especially every time I have to unpick. I'm reminded that these stitches are not easy to come out. So whatever you like to do, whether you like to do tie-offs or you like to bury your threads, is totally fine. Okay, so with our first curl here, we stop down at the bottom. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to either stitch up this line and hope that I hit it nicely, or I'm going to stop and cut my thread and come up to the edge of my curve. And now I'm going to do my curl in the other direction. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did. So I'm going to start with the skeleton of a curl. Okay. And then when I get into here, I'm going to do a teardrop and then start touching those points as I come out so that it makes kind of these nice wedge shapes. Okay. So I started and ended in the same spot. Okay. So now that we have our main curl shape, we're going to add the other embellishments to it. Okay, so I can either stitch up this line here and do my feather plumes. Okay, or if I'm worried about too much stitching, then I can stop and jump and come here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is a plume that fills in that space, and then I'm going to travel up a little more, another plume, and travel up a little more, and another. Okay, and then I can tie off right in there. Okay, and then I can move to the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. So a plume, stitch down a little more, fill in that space, stitch down a little more, and fill in that space. Okay, and then I can stop and cut my thread and come up here. And then I'm going to do 3 circles that fill in the top of that triangle. Okay, and then finally, last couple things here, so I can come down to here, and I can do a circle, a bigger circle, and then a small circle. Okay. So if this teaches you anything, it teaches you that you can stop and cut your thread and jump, and nobody is going to die. It's going to be totally fine. Okay, now the other option, like I said, to do this a continuous line, it takes a little more planning to get it done, and it also takes some marking. But what you can do so that you don't have these stops and jumps, I'm going to turn this layer off, and let's do another one. So let me draw my little schematic here. So this is this stitched in the ditch area. Okay, so essentially what you would do is you would draw this whole design first, so that every time you get to one of those points, you can just do like little detours. Okay, so stay with me here. It's kind of tricky and weird, but again, I want to give you multiple ways to fit whatever your needs are, whatever your desires are for the way that you like to get things done. Okay, so I'm going to start by going up. So remember, I have the marking line to follow here. Okay, so I'm not doing this blindly. So every time I have a detour, I'm going to take it. Okay, so with these pebbles, I can just go from one side to the other, because I'm not having to make up the shapes as I go. I'm following the lines that are already marked. Okay, so it's a little funkier. I would prefer to just stop and cut my thread. But again, like I said, I'm giving you multiple options for how you want to get it done. But once it is done, it is so beautiful. Okay, so see how we did that all as one continuous line? If I were digitizing this design, that is how I would do it. So that there's very minimal overlap. But the nice thing with digitizing is that you can get precise curves and angles, which is like a whole different thing to talk about with digitizing. But then you don't have any stops and starts. You have one continuous line with very minimal overstitching. Okay, I'm glad you guys like that. Okay, so let's do the other schematic, and then we will go to the long arm quilting machine, and I will stitch these out for you so you can see them in real time. Christine says, if you don't bury your threads, don't you end up with a buildup of threads on the back? I don't bury my threads, but I do tie off my threads. So anytime I'm starting stitching, I make sure that I pull up my bottom thread. If you don't pull up your bobbin thread, that's when you get those like thread nests and buildup in the back. So that's what you'll want to be careful with. There is still a little bit of buildup in terms of like tie off stitches because you're over stitching 2 or 3 times. So you do see that. So it's totally up to you on how pristine you want to be with those stitches. I am just not, I'm too lazy. So yeah. Amy says, you're so talented, mind blowing, love watching. Oh, you're so nice. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so this next one, for those of you who are like mad at me about making you stop and jump and cut your thread, you'll like this design more because this is all one continuous line. So the way that we're going to build this is we're going to start with the skeleton and then we're going to travel back and forth adding embellishments as we go. Okay, so this is called a ribbon candy and this is like ribbon candy on LSD because it's beautiful, but it's kind of crazy looking. Jenny says, when you take classes with Karlee, best watch and ask questions. Draw along the second time. Can always rewatch over and over. Thanks, Jenny. You're like my star student. Jenny has taken, I'm pretty sure, every single class that I've ever taught. So Jenny's the real MVP here. Okay, so with this ribbon candy, I'm going to turn this sideways just so that we can see the whole thing on screen. And I'm going to turn my iPad. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with a skeleton of a ribbon candy. So I'm just working my way from side to side. And I'm hugging those outer edges of my space. So the first thing that I always like to do with ribbon candy is define the space that I'm filling and hug those edges. I just find that it's easier for me to add embellishments later if I already have my perimeter kind of covered. Okay, so see how I'm just hugging those edges? Working my way up. So it's going to get smaller because I'm going into a pointy diamond. Okay, and then finally at the top, I'm going to go into a curl. Okay, now to come back down, I'm going to take the shortest possible path. So I'm going to do kind of like we did in these curls over here where we kissed these little points. We're going to do kind of something similar. So what I'm going to do is just kiss that point. And then as I come down, I'm just going to take little short paths. So I'm starting to turn my ribbon candy into a shape instead of just a line. Okay, so often in quilting, we see lines everywhere because, duh, our thread makes a line, right? But if we can take the time to do extra passes, then we can start to turn our quilting into shapes that have positive and negative space. I talk about this a ton in my graffiti quilting class. So if you've taken the graffiti quilting class, I feel like you're nodding your head right now. If you haven't taken the graffiti quilting class, this is kind of part of that concept about turning designs into shapes instead of lines. So see how now we have a positive and negative space, right? So we have positive space here and negative space here, which I find just elevates quilting no matter what. Anytime you can create a discernible shape, you're going to have more elevation, I think, in your quilting. It's gonna really elevate the loft, the three-dimensionality that you get from quilting. Jenny says, yes, everyone, and I'm excited for this one too. Thanks, Jenny. Okay, so let's embellish this even further. So we have this space kind of in these areas that we could do something with. So we're going to do something with them. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to travel. So I actually am just going to do a cute little teardrop in there because one fits nicely. Okay, now we're going to travel up that inner line that we did. But anytime we get to these crossovers, we're going to take a little detour and just do a little curl in and back out. And then keep going. Curl in and back out. And then overstitch. I'm going to change my color here. Let's see, let's do a red so that you can see where I'm overstitching. So overstitch that line, do a detour with a curl in and back out, and then keep going. Curl. Okay, so see how I'm just starting to fill in that space more? We're really just continually interpreting the spaces that we're trying to fill. So if we have an area, we can say, what would look good in there? And then put it there, right? Okay, but we don't have to necessarily have every single thing planned out as we go. The point is that this is the planning, right? So you could do all of this on your sketchbook or on your iPad before you even go to the quilting machine. Or you can quilt as you go and decide each new motif as you go, which is a little bit more ballsy in my opinion, just because then it's like, if you draw it on paper and you hate it, you can just erase it. But if you do it on quilting and you hate it, then you either hate it forever or you unpick it, which is way less fun than crumpling up a piece of paper and throwing it away. Okay, so we're working our way up, doing those little curls in there. Oops, sorry, skip that spot. Okay, and then those little top curls got a little bit tight, so I'm going to skip those. So now when I get here, I'm going to do these loops on the inside. So now I have these spaces to fill. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just a loop, 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 all the way down. So again, I'm just following that main line. And then when those get bigger, instead of doing one loop, I chose to do 3. So it kind of just fills in that space proportionally. And then when they get smaller again, I'll go back to 1 loop. Okay. Pretty cool, eh? Kind of fun. All right, so I have my quilting machine all set up and ready to quilt these. And I'm kind of stuck in here, so I'm going to move to my quilting machine and I'm just going to go ahead and climb over this and I'll meet you over there. Okay, here we are. Oh, and my nails match my quilt. I didn't even do that on purpose. Let's just say I did. Actually, I did it on purpose. I'm going to take credit for that. Okay, so here is my stand-up quilting machine. I've already got my stitch in the ditch lines put down. And so I'm going to start in these little bottom points to quilt each of our designs. Okay, so let's start with the curl that we did. So this is what I mean by pulling up your thread. So even though I don't bury my threads, I don't just start stitching and going. I pull up my bobbin thread and then I'll do a couple of tie-off stitches here. And then I'll trim that. Okay, so we're going to start with that curl going one way and then back down. And I think I'm just going to overstitch things so that you can see what that would look like as well. Okay, so starting down at the bottom, I'm going to hype myself up in my head and think about where I'm going to go and remember that I can stop at any time if I need a break. Okay, so I've got my skeleton and now I'm going to do my little kisses back down. And then I think I'm going to also do my feather plumes in there as well. Okay, so there's my curl. You'll see it as we go up. So now I'm going to go up the other side and do my other curl on top of it. And I'm actually going to change my stitch length. It's pretty tight. It's 15 stitches per inch. I'm going to move it to 12 because that felt a little bit tighter than I think I like. Okay, so now I have my 2 curls, but I didn't do all of my embellishments in there. So I have a thread cutter built into my machine. So that beep you just heard is the thread cutting, the bobbin thread. Now I'm going to cut my top thread, and now I'm going to do those extra things. So up here I had more plumes going this way. So I'm going to add those. Okay, do my tie-offs, trim my thread, okay, cut my other threads, and then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do those 3 pebbles. Okay, so there's my pebbles, and this is free motion, so it's not perfect, but it is beautiful. Okay, and now I'm going to do those last little 3 pebbles down here. Okay, there we have it. So now you can see, so there's my curl and my plumes here, my pebbles there. So I probably could have done my curl a little bigger over here because I've got some open space, but that's okay. I'm still really happy with this. This pebble is not perfect. It's a little bit chubby at the bottom, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. Okay, all right, so now we have this diamond here that we're going to do our ribbon candy in. And this one will be fun because it is all one continuous line. So again, I'm going to start in my bottom and give myself a tie-off stitch and trim my threads. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with my skeleton first, hugging the edges of those sides. Okay, there's my curl at the top. Now we're going to take our short detours all the way down. Okay, now that I'm at the top, I'm going to fill in these last little areas on my way down. Okay. Kind of cute, eh? This fabric is so fun to quilt on, you guys. I'm telling you, it's so smooth. Like there's no, gathering. There's no seams to worry about. So when you load it onto the frame, it's just nice and smooth. It lays nice and flat. Guys, it's so, so fun. Okay, let me get back to my desk and see what you guys have to say about this. Okay, I'm back. Oh, awesome. Susan says, I was wondering how you would get out of the boxers. Yeah, out of the box that you're in. That's how, just climb right over. Felice says, what color thread are you using? For that quilt top, I was using white because all of the colors are pretty saturated, so white typically shows up pretty well, at least when you're actually quilting. So Trish says, I have the flu and I'm not going to, oh, I missed it. Not going to make it back to finish watching. Thanks for the demo. Oh, I'll come back to finish watching. That's great. I hope you feel better soon. Aw. Susan says, I can really see how this class will be a skill builder. It really is. I'm telling you. That's the whole reason I'm here, is to tell you you should really sign up for this class. Helen says, I love the big ribbon, but really struggling to do big motifs on the sit down without where I have stopped to move my hands obvious. I wish I had the space for a frame. Okay, so here's a tip for you with the sit down machine. Set your needle to stop in the down position, because then when you need to take a pause to resituate your hands, your needle will stay in the exact location where you left off. That is like a game changer for me. So try doing that, where you, anytime you stop, make it stop in the down position. There's a setting right on the screen. It's like right in the middle on the bottom with an arrow up and down. Try that. Let's see. Jenny says, looks cool. I'll pick a darker thread for mine so I can see it better. Susan asks, what are the panels made from? They are polyester. Leah says, normally ribbon candy and I do not get along, but this is one I think I could do smoothly. Thank you for teaching that. You're welcome. Yeah, I love ribbon candy. It's one of my favorites. Helen says, this has been fantastic. As I've been considering doing courses, I really must get some sleep. Thank you. You're welcome, Helen. Sleep well. Have great dreams about me. Just kidding. Valerie says, which class would you recommend for a newbie with a long arm? I would recommend graffiti quilting. The Lone Star Border Bliss class, if you're brand new with your long arm, might just be a little tricky because there are skills to owning a long arm that you'll want to get better at, just like how to maneuver and really just the muscle of like using a long arm quilting machine is kind of like dancing. So get to know your dance partner before you start like trying to do dips and dives and stuff. I would say graffiti quilting is the absolute best class that you could take with being a new long arm owner. So there will be so much for you to learn, and I think it will really help you get over the frustration that many quilters feel when they first start using a long arm, because it is a very foreign thing. So I would recommend graffiti quilting. But if you wanted to take both, that's cool. The other class will be a lot of fun in just different ways. Jenny says, even on a domestic machine, needle down feature is a game changer. Yeah, yep, I would highly agree. Oh, Susan says, there's your puppy. Yeah, she was hanging out under here. Okay, so we are close to 2 hours. I wanted to make sure I didn't go over 2 hours, but this has been so much fun. Let me check my notes really quick and make sure I didn't skip anything vital. Okay, so to reiterate, my 2 upcoming classes start on September 9th. They are currently on sale, so the sooner you sign up, the cheaper they will be. I also have a coupon code where you can take an extra $25 off. So 25 extra bucks. Use that at checkout. That coupon is good until the class starts on September 9th, but registration does go up by $25 each month. So I like to do early bird registration just because since I'm sending you welcome packages and I have to order custom printed fabric for everybody, that does take some time. So I want to make sure that I get everything to you guys on time. So the sooner you register, the better for all of us. So you can just register for the class, enjoy your summer, And then when class starts on September 9th, we can all be ready for it. So use that code 25 extra bucks. It's easy to find the classes. Just go to karleeporter.com and use that coupon code. Also, if you like this video and you would like to be entered to the raffle where I'm giving away some fun goodies, please be sure to share this video to your timeline or with your friends, or email, however you like to share things with the people you love. I would love for you to share it. At the end of July, I will come back to this video and count up all of the raffles for the shares. So it'll show me who shared it. And I will make sure you get entered to win the raffle. And yeah, I would love to see you guys. You have been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Oh, Melissa says, will this graffiti quilting class be new information from the one in 2020? Yes and no. Every time I teach the class, I find that there are new things to cover. So I think there will be quite a bit of overlap, but it's not like I memorize speeches or anything to teach it for verbatim. But there will be quite a bit of overlap. I would say 80% overlap is probably accurate from the 2020 class versus now. Other than the technology behind the classes has vastly improved since 2020. Like when we first started teaching online classes, we had one camera angle that we were manually moving around. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 camera angles, which is very cool. So it's up to you. But Melissa, I would say since you've already taken graffiti quilting, I would definitely check out the Lone Star Border Bliss class, because that will be a lot of fun. And it's a project-based class. So there's a lot more to it where you have a finished project by the end of the class. Valerie says, sounds good. Thank you. Maybe I need both classes. Maybe you will get double the caramels if you take both classes. Wow. How did that time go by that fast? I agree. Time does go fast with me. I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, but I am always like, I cannot believe we're an hour and a half in. Like, I feel like I always have so much content to cover. So you will definitely be getting bang for your buck. If anything, you're going to be tired of me after the 8 weeks, because I really try to jam pack it with as much as possible. Franny says, got here late. Will this be viewable again? Yes, it will. You're welcome, Annette. She said, thanks for the demo. Awesome. Very cool. Are the famous caramels also shipped to Canada? Yes. As far as I've heard, there are no longer any restrictions for shipping edible items overseas. I mean, over country borders. So yeah, I've been shipping them to people outside of the country and I haven't gotten any complaints yet. Cecilia says, does the class make a difference if you only use a domestic machine or not a long arm? So if you are only on a domestic machine, I would say that the graffiti quilting class is going to be safer in terms of making sure you can apply everything, because you can do graffiti quilting at a very small scale on a domestic machine, but then once you understand that, you can transfer it to a larger format. So I would say you can do both classes on a domestic machine. So yes, feed dogs. Thank you, Andrew. You'll want to make sure it's just a machine where you can lower the feed dogs and do free motion quilting. Christine says, thanks for the demo. Hope to see you soon. You are welcome, Christine. Shelly says, when are you due? So I am not pregnant. I had my baby September of last year, so he's almost 1. Shelly, it's so good to see you on here. I hope you're doing well. We need to have a good chat sometime soon. You are welcome for the inspiration. Susan says, you rock along with your hubby. He is literally the best, you guys. Oh, you are so awesome. Good. I'm so excited. Laurette, I'm glad that you're here. It's good to see you. I hope that you will take the plunge with one of my classes. I've always got my caramels here in Canada. Thank you, Nancy, for letting us know. I do cook the caramels a little firmer than the recipe says, knowing that I'll ship them. But yes, they should arrive to you safely. Okay, so we're an hour and 46 minutes and 23 seconds into this. So Oh, I guess I might have been looking at the wrong clock. Either way, this has been a long but hopefully enjoyable video for you. I love hanging out with you guys. And so if you enjoyed this, this is what you can expect in the upcoming classes. They are a lot of fun. You can rewind, or if you feel like I'm talking too slow, you can speed up the video, which is, I'm like laughing because I don't talk slow at all. But the nice thing with these classes is that you can watch and rewatch the videos. You can slow the speed down, you can speed it up, you can do um, whatever pace you're comfortable with. Okay. And I will meet you where you are. As your teacher, it's my job to make sure you get what you want out of the content. So I will meet you where you are, help you with whatever part of your quilting journey you're in. I'm here for you. I got your back. Cecilia says, give your hubby a cameo next time. He's over there going, no. He's like, he doesn't even like when I stare at him. Sandy says, Karlee's the best. I've taken 4 classes from her and I love her. Thank you, Sandy. You are so sweet. Shelly says, fantastic. We will talk soon. Yes. No offense. You look awesome. Oh, I didn't take offense to it. That's okay. This shirt actually does look pregnant. And I feel like, Shelly, last time you and I spoke, I was pregnant. So I'm not even a little bit offended. It's fine. Parm says, do we choose the size we want for the quilt top? Yes. So for the graffiti quilting class, you do get custom printed fabric included, but it's not project based. So those are all the same size. You don't even have to worry about picking one out. They're all the same. For the Lone Star Border Bliss class, yes, you choose whether you want a small, medium, or large. It doesn't change the price of your tuition. I just eat the cost on the larger ones because I wanted to make sure that everyone had the option to go bigger if they wanted to. So I just made them all available. So, yep, when you check out, when you register for the class, that's when you'll specify what size you want. I have a sit-down machine. Is it okay for the graffiti? Yes, absolutely. Any machine that you can do free motion quilting, as long as you can drop your feed dogs if you're using a domestic machine, you can do that. Faster as Disney character. I don't know. Sienna says, how long is the class? Over several months. Great question. So the class is every other Saturday for 8 weeks. So it's September 9th, September 23rd, October 7th, October 21st. So those are the actual class session days. So you have 2 weeks between each class to study and to practice and to do homework and to really absorb what I've taught in the previous class. And then after the 8 weeks is over, I just leave the group open as long as people are actively working. So I don't leave the groups open forever because then I'd have like a billion Facebook groups to manage and maintain. And so I don't do that. But as long as you're actively working and taking the content seriously and doing your best to utilize it, I will leave it open. I will reply to comments and questions. My goal is to make sure that you get everything you feel like you need from the class. So, yeah, so I got your back. I won't ever just shut a class down without you knowing about it. Carol says, I enjoyed the part I got to see. I look forward to rewind and maybe take a class. I was quilting on my son's coral reef quilt. Very cool. Excellent idea to do this intro for the classes. I didn't know which one to take. Now I know what to expect. Thank you. That makes me so happy. Thanks, Araceli. That is very nice of you. I appreciate it. Sienna says, awesome. Thank you. You guys are so great. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this video with your friends. I don't want to start turning into sounding like a YouTube influencer, but it really helps my business a lot when you tell a friend about me. So thank you so much. Use that coupon code 25 extra bucks to get $25 off your tuition. And I will see you guys in September. One more question. Judy says, I had to step away. Do you recommend one over the other as a first class? So Judy, be sure to go back and watch the replay. I talk about each of the classes and which one might suit you better. Graffiti quilting is like a great for everybody class. It's technique based. And then the Lone Star Border Bliss is a really wonderful class to have a finished quilt where you learn tons of different quilting throughout the process of getting to a finished product. So it just depends on your preference and which one you like more. If you want to go skill builder or if you want to go skill builder plus a finished composition where you know exactly what the quilt's going to look like by the time you're done. Graffiti quilting is like a journey that is like Christmas morning when you're done. You don't know what the end result is going to look like. So Okay, you guys are awesome. I love you all. I will see you on the internet, and go get registered for class. It's going to be so super fun, and I will see you guys there for the first class session on September 9th. See you later.